The crowbar hit the door frame with a sharp crack that echoed through the frozen night. "Nobody's coming to help you, kid," Vince said, his breath fogging in the frigid air as he stepped into the darkened house. Behind him, 3 more masked figures pushed through the broken door, tracking Snow and Malice across the threshold. "The roads are closed. The power's out. Your mommy's stuck at the hospital, and you're all alone." 12-year-old Leo stood in the center of his living room, gripping a baseball bat with white-knuckled hands. The bat trembled slightly, betraying the terror he was trying so hard to hide. His voice came out smaller than he wanted. "Please, we don't have anything valuable. Just leave." "Oh, we'll leave," Vince laughed, a cruel sound that made Leo's stomach twist. "After we take what we want. Maybe trash the place a little. Teach you a lesson about locking your doors during a disaster." He took a menacing step forward. "What are you going to do about it, little man? Call the cops on your dead phone line." Leo's eyes darted toward the shadowed hallway that led to the kitchen. For just a moment, the faintest hint of something, was it fear, or was it something else, flickered across his young face. "I wouldn't come any closer if I were you," Leo said quietly. Vince sneered. "Why? You got a guard dog." From the darkness of the hallway came a sound that made Vince's blood run cold. It was the distinctive metallic click of a Zippo lighter opening, followed by the hiss of flame. The small fire illuminated a face that looked like it had been carved from granite and bad decisions. A face marked with scars, stubble, and absolutely zero patience for home invaders. "Better," a gravelly voice rumbled from the shadows. "He's got 20 of us." The living room erupted with movement. Men materialized from every darkened corner, rising from where they'd been crouching in silence. Big men, leather-clad men, men wearing cuts that read "Grim Bastards MC" across their backs in letters that seemed to grow larger with each passing second. Vince's crowbar clattered to the floor. "Oh," Bishop said, stepping fully into the flickering light and cracking his knuckles with deliberate slowness. "You boys just made the last mistake of your criminal careers." 36 hours earlier, the weather forecast had called it the storm of the century. But that felt like an understatement as Leo pressed his face against the cold window and watched the world disappear into white. Snow fell so thick and fast that he couldn't see the barn, couldn't see the fence line, couldn't even see the old oak tree that stood just 20 yards from the house. "Leo, honey, are you still there?" His mother's voice crackled over the landline phone, the connection already getting worse as the storm intensified. Leo pulled himself away from the window and picked up the receiver again. "Yeah, Mom, I'm here. The hospital just called in all essential staff," Sarah Jensen said, and Leo could hear the exhaustion and worry in her voice. "They're saying this storm is going to be worse than the blizzard of '96. The roads are already closing. I'm going to have to stay here through my shift, maybe longer." "Baby, I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Mom." Leo tried to sound braver than he felt. At 12 years old, he'd been home alone before, but never during a storm like this. Never when the power might go out. Never when the wind sounded like it was trying to claw its way through the walls. "I'll be fine. I've got food, I've got blankets, and I know where the flashlights are." "That's my smart boy." He could hear the smile in her voice, but also the tears she was holding back. "The generator is in the basement if the power goes out. The red switch, just like we practiced." And Leo, "Yeah, don't open the door for anyone. I don't care who they say they are. The sheriff's department is saying there might be people taking advantage of the blackout. Promise me." Leo looked out at the swirling white chaos beyond the window. The thought of anyone being out in that seemed impossible. "I promise. I love you so much. I'll call when I can, but if the lines go down." The phone made a sound like a dying robot, then went silent. Leo stood holding the dead receiver for a long moment before hanging it up. The house suddenly felt much larger and much emptier. He was alone. Leo spent the next hour doing what his mom had taught him. He filled the bathtub with water in case the pipes froze. He brought in firewood from the covered porch and stacked it by the fireplace. He laid out flashlights and candles in every room. He even made himself a peanut butter sandwich, though anxiety had stolen his appetite. The power went out at 4:47 p.m., exactly 14 minutes after the phone line had died. One moment the house was full of familiar electric hums and the glow of lamps. The next, it was dark and silent except for the howling wind. Leo clicked on his flashlight and made his way to the basement. His hand shook slightly as he reached for the generator's red switch. remembering his mom's instructions. 1 pull, 2 pulls, 3, and the generator roared to life, sending a surge of relief through him. Lights flickered on throughout the house, weak but present. He climbed back upstairs and turned on the TV, needing the sound of human voices to fill the silence. The emergency broadcast was showing a map of the county, nearly every road marked in red. Advising all residents to shelter in place, the news anchor was saying, Interstate 40 is closed in both directions. Multiple accidents reported. State police are warning of opportunistic criminals taking advantage of the power outages to target isolated homes. If you see suspicious activity, please. The TV flickered and died as the generator coughed, sputtered, and gave up. The house plunged back into darkness. No, 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 Leo muttered, grabbing his flashlight and racing back to the basement. He tried the switch again, and again. Nothing. The generator was old, temperamental, and apparently decided that tonight was a great night to die completely. Leo stood in the dark basement, feeling the cold already starting to creep through the walls. The furnace wouldn't work without power. The house would be freezing within hours. He climbed back upstairs, wrapped himself in 2 blankets, and settled by the window with his baseball bat across his lap. It had been his dad's bat before the accident 3 years ago. Leo gripped it tightly, as if his father's strength might somehow transfer through the old wood. The news report's warning echoed in his mind. Opportunistic criminals targeting isolated homes. Outside, the storm raged on, turning the world into a frozen, hostile wilderness. And then, through the white curtain of snow, Leo saw lights. Not house lights, moving lights, headlights. Multiple headlights, weaving and struggling along the highway that ran past his property. Leo pressed his face to the cold glass, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. It looked like a convoy of some kind, but the vehicles were wrong. Too small, too low. Motorcycles. As Leo watched in disbelief, the lead bike hit a patch of black ice. It went down hard, sliding across the road and into the ditch near his front gate. The second bike tried to avoid it and skidded sideways. The third and fourth followed. Within seconds, the entire convoy was down, bikes scattered across the icy highway like fallen dominoes. Men were climbing to their feet, stumbling in the knee-deep snow. Even from this distance, Leo could see they were in trouble. They were dressed for riding, not for a blizzard. Leather jackets and jeans. No winter gear. No survival equipment. They would freeze to death out there. Maybe not in minutes, but in hours. Definitely before the storm broke. Leo's hands tightened on the bat. His mother's warning rang in his ears. Don't open the door for anyone. But he could also hear her voice from 100 different moments throughout his childhood. You help people when they need it. That's what good people do. Through the window, Leo counted the figures struggling in the snow. 15. No more. At least 20 men, all fighting against the wind and cold as they tried to gather their bikes, tried to help each other up, tried and failed to get the motorcycle started again. One of them collapsed into the snow and didn't get up. Leo's decision was made before he consciously realized it. He set down the bat, grabbed the biggest flashlight he had, and ran to the front door. His hands were shaking as he unlocked it, not just from cold, but from fear of what he was inviting in. But fear of his own cowardice was stronger. He threw open the door and turned on the porch light, which ran on the last gasps of the generator's battery backup. Then he stepped out into the screaming wind and waved his flashlight in broad arcs, a beacon in the darkness. Here, he shouted, though the wind ripped his voice away. Over here. The figures in the snow turned toward the light. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, they began trudging through the drifts toward his house. As they got closer, Leo's courage wavered. These weren't lost travelers. These were bikers. Real bikers. He could see the patches on their leather cuts now, even through the snow. Skulls and flames, and words he couldn't quite make out. The lead man reached the porch steps, and Leo finally got a good look at him. He was massive, probably 6'4", with a gray-streaked beard full of ice and eyes that had seen things Leo couldn't imagine. Scars crossed his weathered face. His hands were the size of dinner plates. He looked like a monster from a nightmare. Kid, the man said, his voice rough as gravel. You got a death wish, or are you just the bravest idiot in this county? Leo swallowed hard. You're freezing. Come inside. The big man stared at him for a long moment. Behind him, the other bikers were gathering on the lawn, 19 snowmen in leather and denim, all watching this exchange with expressions Leo couldn't read. "You know who we are?" the big man asked. Leo shook his head. "We're the Grim Bastards Motorcycle Club. We're not nice people. Your mama know you're inviting the big bad wolves into your house." "My mama taught me not to let people freeze to death," Leo said, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. "Are you coming in or not?" "I'm letting all the heat out." A sound that might have been a laugh escaped the big man's throat. "What's your name, kid?" "Leo." "I'm Bishop. This is my club." He gestured to the others. "We come in. We don't cause trouble. We warm up, wait out the storm, and we're gone. That work for you?" "That works for me." Bishop nodded slowly, then turned to his men. "You heard the kid. Inside. Take off your boots. Show some respect." And just like that, 20 members of the Grim Bastards Motorcycle Club filed into Leo's small farmhouse, tracking snow and danger across the threshold. The living room had never seemed smaller. 20 bikers filled every available space, sitting on the couch, leaning against walls, sprawling on the floor. They were a tapestry of ink and leather, scars and stories. Tattoos covered every visible inch of skin. Patches adorned their cuts with names Leo didn't recognize: Tiny, Reaper, Smoke, Knuckles, Diesel. The man called Tiny was possibly the largest human being Leo had ever seen, easily 6'6" and built like a refrigerator. Ironically named, Leo thought. They all looked dangerous in different ways, some with hard eyes that had seen violence, others with smiles that suggested they'd enjoyed it. Leo stood by the fireplace, still clutching his baseball bat, trying not to look as terrified as he felt. Bishop, who'd settled into Leo's mother's favorite armchair like a king on a throne, studied the boy with an expression that was hard to read. "Where's your old man, Leo?" "He passed away 3 years ago." Leo's voice was quiet but steady. "Your mama?" This was the dangerous question. Leo knew that much. If they knew he was truly alone, completely vulnerable, the equation could change. His mind raced, weighing the risk of lying against the risk of truth. "She's a nurse. She's working at County General. The storm trapped her there. And you're here alone." It wasn't a question, but Leo answered anyway. "I can take care of myself." "I can see that," Bishop said, and there might have been a hint of respect in his tone. 12 years old, facing down 20 bikers with a baseball bat. That takes either courage or stupidity. Haven't figured out which yet. "Maybe both," Leo admitted. This got a genuine laugh from several of the men. The tension in the room eased slightly, like a rope that had been pulled taut suddenly given a bit of slack. A biker with a long scar down his cheek, his patch red Reaper, spoke up. "Kid's got stones. Bishop. I like him. Don't get attached, Reaper. We're not staying long." Bishop turned back to Leo. "How long's the power been out?" "About 3 hours. Generator died an hour ago." Bishop frowned. "It's gonna get cold in here fast. You got a working fireplace?" "Yes, and I brought in wood before the storm got bad." "Smart kid." Bishop looked around at his men. "All right, bastards. We're guests in this kid's house. Act accordingly. No smoking inside. No drinking. No cursing." He emphasized this last point with a meaningful look at several members who were opening their mouths to object. "The kid shows us hospitality. We return the favor." "Got it." A chorus of reluctant agreement rippled through the room. "Diesel, Smoke, go look at that generator," Bishop ordered. "See if you can fix it. Tiny, help the kid get a fire going. The rest of you, make yourselves useful or stay out of the way." The bikers moved with surprising efficiency. Within minutes, Diesel and Smoke had grabbed flashlights and headed to the basement. Tiny was kneeling by the fireplace, his massive hands arranging logs with unexpected delicacy. "You got newspaper?" Tiny asked, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. Leo nodded and retrieved the stack of old newspapers his mom kept for recycling. As Tiny crumpled them and tucked them under the logs, Leo noticed the tattoos covering the big man's hands. Skulls and roses, names and dates, symbols Leo didn't understand. "How long you been a biker?" Leo asked, his natural curiosity overcoming his fear. Tiny glanced at him, and for a moment his hard expression softened. "Since I was 18. 20 years now. It's the only family I've got. Like a club. More than that. It's a brotherhood. We look out for each other, ride together, fight together. If one of us is in trouble, all of us are there. No questions asked." "That sounds nice." Leo said quietly, thinking of how alone he'd felt just an hour ago. Tiny struck a match and held it to the newspaper. Flames caught and began to spread. Brotherhood ain't always nice, kid. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's dangerous. But it's real. And real is better than comfortable. The fire crackled to life, casting dancing shadows across the room. Almost immediately, the bikers gravitated toward it, holding out their hands to the warmth. Some were shivering violently, Leo noticed. They'd been out in that storm longer than he'd realized. How far were you trying to ride? Leo asked. Bishop answered from his chair. We were heading home from a run to Montana, meeting with another chapter. Storm came up faster than the weather service predicted. We thought we could outrun it. He shook his head. Pride before the fall, as they say. You guys fell pretty hard on that ice. That we did. Bishop's expression turned serious. We owe you, kid. Most people see the grim bastards coming and lock their doors. Cross the street. Call the cops. You opened your door and invited us in. That's not something we forget. I'm just doing what my mom would do, Leo said. Then, struck by a sudden thought, he added, Are you guys hungry? The question was met with a moment of silence, then a few rueful laughs. Starving, admitted a biker with a shaved head and a patch that read knuckles. We haven't eaten since this morning. Leo thought about his limited supplies. I don't have much, but I can heat up some soup. We've got a gas stove, so it'll work even without power. Kid, you don't have to, Bishop started. You're my guests, Leo interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. And you're cold and hungry. It's just soup. We've got lots of canned soup. He hurried to the kitchen before anyone could object, glad for something to do, some way to feel useful, and less like a terrified child waiting for the monsters to show their true nature. The kitchen was dark except for his flashlight, but he knew where everything was by heart. He pulled out 6 large cans of tomato soup. His mom bought in bulk at the warehouse store, and found the biggest pots they had. As he worked, opening cans and pouring soup into pots, he heard the bikers talking in the living room. Their voices were lower now, more relaxed. Someone was talking about his bike, lamenting the damage from the crash. Someone else was joking about never trusting Montana weather again. They sounded almost normal, like people, not monsters. Leo lit the burners on the gas stove and stirred the soup as it heated. The smell of tomatoes and basil filled the kitchen, warm and comforting. He found their stack of mismatched bowls. They didn't have 20 matching bowls, but they had enough containers of various sorts, and started ladling out portions. Need help? Leo turned to find Tiny ducking through the kitchen doorway, careful not to hit his head on the frame. I can carry them, Leo said. So can I. And I'm bigger. Tiny's scarred face split into something that might have been a smile. Let me help, kid. Makes me feel less like a freeloader. Together, they carried bowls of hot soup to the living room. Leo watched as these hardened bikers accepted their portions with surprising gentleness, cradling the warm bowls in their calloused hands, saying thank you and appreciate it in voices that held genuine gratitude. Bishop took his bowl and studied Leo over the rim. You always this hospitable to strangers. You're not exactly strangers anymore, Leo pointed out. You're in my living room, eating my soup. That makes you, I don't know, temporary family, I guess. The room went very quiet. Several of the bikers exchanged glances that Leo couldn't quite interpret. Finally, Bishop spoke. Temporary family. I like that. He raised his bowl slightly. To our temporary family, then, and to the bravest kid in the county. To Leo, the bikers chorused, raising their own bowls. Leo felt his cheeks flush, but he couldn't help smiling. Maybe, just maybe, this was going to be okay. The warmth from the fire and the hot soup helped. But as midnight approached, the temperature in the house continued to drop. Leo could see his breath in the air outside the immediate vicinity of the fireplace. The bikers huddled closer to the flames, and despite their tough exteriors, he could see them shivering. This house wouldn't be survivable without heat. Not in a blizzard like this. Diesel and smoke emerged from the basement, both looking frustrated. Generators shot. Diesel reported to Bishop. The starter motors fried. And even if it wasn't, the fuel lines clogged worse than rush hour traffic. It's been neglected for too long. No way we're getting it running without parts we don't have. Bishop cursed quietly, then glanced at Leo with an apologetic expression. Sorry, kid. We tried. But Leo's mind was already working. What about the furnace? It's electric ignition, Smoke said. Won't work without power. But if you had power, just a little bit, could you make it work? The two bikers exchanged glances. Maybe, Diesel said slowly. But we already told you. We don't need the generator, Leo interrupted, excitement building in his voice. My dad was an engineer before he died. He used to mess around with solar panels and batteries. We've got a bunch of deep cycle batteries in the garage from his old projects. If we could rig them to the furnace, would that work? Diesel's eyes lit up. You got car batteries? Better. Marine batteries. 6 of them, I think. And Dad's old inverter. Smoke was already heading for the door. Show me. Leo led him and Diesel through the attached garage, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. His father's old workbench sat against the far wall, exactly as he'd left it 3 years ago. His mother hadn't had the heart to clear it out. The batteries were there, lined up like soldiers, connected to a solar panel charging system that his dad had installed just in case. Just in case of what, he'd never said. But looking at them now, Leo thought maybe his dad had known. Maybe all those just-in-case preparations had been his way of trying to protect his family even after he was gone. Your old man was a smart cookie, Diesel said, examining the setup with approval. These batteries are still good. And this inverter, yeah, we can work with this. Smoke was already disconnecting the batteries, handling them with practiced ease despite their weight. We'll need to run lines to the furnace. Got any heavy gauge wire? Leo pointed to the pegboard where his father had kept his electrical supplies, everything labeled and organized with engineer precision. Smoke whistled low. Kid, your dad left you a gold mine here. I don't really know how to use any of it, Leo admitted. Mom says I can learn when I'm older. You're learning now, Diesel said, waving Leo over. Come here. Let me show you what we're doing. For the next hour, Leo received a crash course in emergency electrical work from 2 biker mechanics who turned out to be surprisingly good teachers. They explained every step. How to calculate the power draw of the furnace, how to wire the batteries in series to increase voltage, how to connect the inverter, how to create a safe bypass around the generator. Normally, I'd never do this without proper permits and inspections, Diesel explained as they worked. This is a temporary fix, just to get you through the storm. Promise me you'll get a real electrician to check it before your mom starts using the regular system again. I promise, Leo said, watching intently as Diesel connected the final wire. All right, moment of truth. Smoke flipped a switch. Nothing happened. Then, with a rumble that felt like a minor earthquake, the furnace roared to life. Within minutes, warm air was flowing through the vents. The bikers in the living room let out a cheer that rattled the windows. Leo felt tears prick his eyes. His house was going to be warm. They were all going to be okay. Diesel clapped him on the shoulder, gently, but Leo still staggered a bit. You did good, kid. Your old man would be proud. They returned to the living room like conquering heroes. Bishop stood and extended his hand to Leo, not a handshake for a child, but a real handshake, man to man. You saved our lives tonight, Bishop said solemnly. First by opening your door, then by being smart enough to help us help you. The grim bastards don't forget debts, Leo. Ever. It was your guys who fixed the furnace, Leo protested. With your dad's equipment, your batteries, and your idea. Bishop shook his head. Don't diminish what you did. Bravery is opening the door. Intelligence is knowing how to use what you have. You've got both. The warmth spreading through the house did more than just heat the air. It transformed the atmosphere. The bikers relaxed, sprawling more comfortably on the floor, their leather cuts spread out to dry. Someone found Leo's old PlayStation in the entertainment center. This thing still work? Tiny asked. Yeah, but we can't use the TV without power for, Leo started. Smoke held up a portable gaming monitor. Found this in the garage. It's 12 volt. We can run it off the battery setup. Within minutes, Tiny and 3 other bikers were engaged in an intense racing game competition, trash-talking each other with the enthusiasm of teenagers. Their laughter filled the house. Leo sat cross-legged on the floor, watching these scary men play video games like kids, and felt something in his chest unknot. This was going to be okay. They really weren't going to hurt him. Bishop settled down beside him, moving with surprising grace for a man his size. What time does your mom usually call? She said she'd try, but the phone lines are down. She's going to be worried. She's probably too busy to worry, Leo said, though he didn't quite believe it. The hospital will be swamped with people hurt in the storm. Still, a mother's going to worry about her kid alone in a blizzard, no matter how busy she is. Bishop was quiet for a moment. You said your dad passed 3 years ago. What happened? Car accident. Black ice, actually. Leo gestured toward the window and the storm beyond. Kind of like tonight. He was coming home from work, hit a patch of ice, went off the road into a tree. He died instantly. Mom says he didn't suffer. I'm sorry, kid. It's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it's been 3 years. We're doing all right now, Mom and me. She works hard. I try to help. Leo picked at the carpet fibers. Sometimes I feel like I need to be the man of the house, you know? But I'm only 12. I don't always know what that means. Being a man doesn't have anything to do with age, Bishop said gruffly. It's about character. About doing the right thing even when it's hard or scary. You did that tonight, Leo. You saw people in trouble, and even though you were afraid, and don't tell me you weren't afraid, I could see it in your eyes. You helped anyway. That's more manly than half the fools I've met who are 3 times your age. Leo felt his throat tighten. Really? Your dad taught you well. Your mom too. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Tiny celebrate a particularly impressive victory lap, while his competitors groaned in defeat. Bishop? Leo asked quietly. Those guys on the news, the ones robbing houses during the blackout, do you think they're real? Bishop's expression hardened. Oh, they're real. Scum who prey on people when they're vulnerable. Cowards who hide behind masks and weapons to terrorize families. He looked at Leo seriously. Why? You worried about them? A little, Leo admitted. I mean, I was alone before you guys got here. If they'd come instead of you. They didn't. And now you've got 20 of the meanest sons of. Bishop caught himself. 20 of the toughest guys in the state between you and any trouble. Nobody's getting through that door who shouldn't. You really think someone might try? The storm's so bad. Storms bring out the worst in some people. Bishop's voice was grim, but they also bring out the best in others. Like you, kid. Like you. Outside, the blizzard continued to rage. But inside, the house was warm, filled with the sound of laughter and good-natured competition. Leo felt safer than he had in hours. He had no idea that just 3 miles away, 4 men in a van were watching his house through binoculars, waiting for the lights to go out, waiting for their chance. Vince crushed his cigarette in the van's ashtray and raised the binoculars again. Through the swirling snow, he could just make out the farmhouse, its windows glowing with faint light. Power's back on, he muttered. In the driver's seat, Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should pick a different house. This doesn't feel right. This is perfect, Vince snapped. Isolated. Single mom. We've been watching her routine for weeks. She works nights at the hospital. The kids alone. Easy pickings. In this storm, Malik asked from the back seat. Nobody's going to be out in this. Not even us soon if we don't get moving. That's exactly why we stay, Vince insisted. Nobody to see us. Nobody to report us. We go in, grab whatever's valuable, get out. By the time the storm clears and anyone finds out, we're 3 states away. Tommy, the 4th member of their crew, peered over Vince's shoulder at the house. Lights are on. How'd they get power? Generator, probably. Or they fix something. Doesn't matter. Vince lowered the binoculars. We wait until the kid goes to bed. House goes dark. Then we move. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. I signed up for breaking into empty houses, not terrorizing kids. We're not going to terrorize anyone, Vince said, though his smile suggested otherwise. Kid's probably scared already, alone in a storm. We show up, push him around a little. He tells us where Mommy keeps the good stuff. We're in and out in 10 minutes. He'll be fine. And if he fights back? He's 12, Vince laughed. What's he gonna do? They've been working the blackout for 2 days now, hitting 6 houses before this one. All had been empty or occupied by people too scared to resist. They'd accumulated a van full of electronics, jewelry, cash, and prescription drugs. One more house would set them up nicely. And this house, Vince was certain, would be the easiest yet. He'd done his homework. Sarah Jensen, single mother, nurse at County General. 1 kid, Leo Jensen, 12 years old. No pets. No security system. No neighbors within shouting distance. Perfect. How long we gonna wait? Tommy asked, checking his watch. It's almost 2 in the morning. The lights just went out, Marcus said suddenly. Vince grabbed the binoculars. Sure enough, the house had gone dark. Just a faint orange glow remained, probably a fireplace. Kid's going to sleep, Vince said with satisfaction. Give it 30 minutes. Let him get good and unconscious. Then we move. He didn't see the motorcycles, buried under snow drifts near the front gate. Didn't see the extra footprints that had already been covered by fresh snowfall. Didn't see any sign that the house contained anything other than a sleeping child. 30 minutes later, they made their approach. Inside the house, Leo had finally dozed off on the couch, wrapped in blankets, his baseball bat still clutched in one hand. The bikers had spread out across the living room and hallway, most of them sleeping on the floor with their leather cuts folded as pillows. But Bishop wasn't sleeping. Neither was Tiny, who sat by the window like a massive gargoyle, keeping watch. Something's wrong, Tiny said quietly. Bishop's eyes opened immediately. What? Van parked on the side road about half a mile out. Been there for 3 hours. I've been watching it with these. He held up a pair of night vision binoculars that had been attached to his bike. For men inside. They've got their eyes on this house. Bishop was on his feet in an instant, moving silently to the window. Why didn't you say something earlier? Wasn't sure at first. Could have been people who broke down. But they're too interested in this place. They've been watching with binoculars. About 10 minutes ago, they started moving. Wake the others, Bishop ordered quietly. But don't wake the kid. Not yet. Tiny moved through the room like a ghost despite his size, touching shoulders, making silent signals. Within 60 seconds, all 20 bikers were awake and alert, years of experience kicking in. Bishop laid out the situation in a whisper. We've got company coming. For men, probably thinking this is an easy target. They don't know we're here. We're going to let them get inside, make their intentions clear, then teach them the error of their ways. Questions? Reaper grinned in the darkness. Do we have to be gentle? We're in a kid's house, Bishop said sternly. We don't make a mess. We don't traumatize Leo. But these guys want to hurt a child. His voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. They get to learn what the grim bastards do to people who hurt children. What about the kid? Smoke asked, glancing at Leo's sleeping form. He stays asleep if possible. If he wakes up, Tiny, you're with him. Keep him safe and calm. The rest of us handle the visitors. They took positions throughout the house with military precision. Most faded into the shadows of the kitchen and hallway. A few stayed in the living room, lying down as if asleep, but ready to move. Bishop settled into the armchair in the darkest corner, invisible unless you knew where to look. The fire had burned down to embers, casting barely any light. To anyone entering, it would look like a house full of sleeping occupants. They waited. At 2:17 a.m., there was a soft sound at the back door. The scrape of metal on metal. Someone picking the lock. Bishop's hands clenched into fists. He thought of his own daughter, who'd be about Leo's age now if things had gone differently. Thought of what men like these had done to families like his. The back door opened with barely a whisper of sound. Footsteps, trying to be quiet, failing. For men entered the house, spreading out, flashlights cutting through the darkness, and walked right into the trap. Leo woke to the sound of his back door creaking open. For a moment, still fuzzy with sleep, he thought maybe his mom had made it home. But his mom would have come through the front door, would have called out to him. This was someone trying to be quiet. His heart jumped into his throat. The bat was in his hand before conscious thought caught up with instinct. He sat up slowly, trying to see through the darkness. Flashlight beams swept through his kitchen. Multiple flashlight beams. And voices, low and cruel. Check the bedrooms. Grab anything valuable. What about the kid? Find him. Scare him quiet. Terror flooded through Leo's veins, but he forced himself to move. He stood, bat raised, and opened his mouth to shout. A massive hand covered his mouth gently. Tiny's voice was barely a whisper in his ear. Shoo, we got this. You're safe. Leo's eyes adjusted enough to see the shapes in the darkness. The bikers weren't sleeping. They were waiting, coiled like springs, positioned throughout his house. Bishop's voice rang out from the darkness, calm and cold. You boys lost. The flashlight beams swung wildly, trying to find the source of the voice. Vince was the first to speak, trying to sound tough, but not quite managing it. Who's there? This is our house now. You better leave before. Before what? Bishop stepped into a shaft of moonlight from the window. Even in the dim light, he was terrifying, 6'4" of scarred muscle and absolute confidence. Before you terrorize a child, break into his home, steal from his family. There's 4 of us, Vince said, but his voice shook. And you're one of me. Bishop's smile was predatory. Count again. The lights flicked on. Smoke had found the switch. The sudden illumination revealed the full picture. 20 bikers surrounded the 4 home invaders. They'd emerged from the shadows like vengeful spirits, forming a wall of leather and muscle in barely restrained violence. Some had pool cues from Leo's rec room. Others had wrenches and tools from the garage. A few just had their fists. They didn't need weapons to be terrifying. Vince's crowbar hit the floor with a clatter. Marcus's flashlight followed. Tommy actually whimpered. Now then, Bishop said conversationally, walking slowly toward the frozen invaders. Let me explain your situation. You broke into the home of our friend. Our temporary family, as he called us. You came here planning to hurt a child. A brave, good-hearted child who opened his door to strangers in a storm. We didn't know. Marcus started. You didn't know he had protection, Bishop finished. But you knew he was alone. You knew he was vulnerable. You came anyway. That's what makes you predators. That's what makes you scum. Reaper cracked his knuckles. Bishop, we teaching these boys a lesson? We are indeed. Bishop turned to Leo, who was watching with wide eyes from behind Tiny. Leo, you might want to go upstairs for a few minutes. This is going to get educational. Are you going to kill them? Leo asked, his voice small. No, Bishop said firmly. Because we're not like them. We don't prey on the weak. We protect the weak. But we are going to make sure they understand the consequences of their choices. We're going to make sure they never forget what happens when you threaten someone under the protection of the grim bastards. Leo nodded slowly. Don't make too much of a mess. Mom will be upset if you break her furniture. Despite the tension, several bikers chuckled. Bishop's expression softened. We'll be careful with your mom's stuff, kid. I promise. Tiny ushered Leo up the stairs. As he climbed, Leo heard Bishop's voice, no longer conversational, but hard as iron. Gentlemen, class is now in session. What followed wasn't a fight. A fight implies two sides battling. This was a lesson. The bikers didn't use their weapons. They didn't need to. Years of bar brawls and street justice had taught them exactly how to subdue someone efficiently without causing permanent damage, but with maximum discomfort. Vince tried to run and met Diesel's fist. He went down hard, clutching his solar plexus, unable to breathe. Marcus actually tried to fight back, swinging wildly at Knuckles, who simply stepped aside and swept the man's legs out from under him. Marcus hit the floor face first. Tommy curled into a ball and started crying. The bikers left him there, contempt clear on their faces. Malik, perhaps the smartest of the 4, held up his hands in surrender. We're sorry. We're sorry. We'll leave. We'll never come back. Oh, you're definitely leaving, Bishop said. But first, you're going to empty your pockets. Everything you stole tonight. Every piece of jewelry, every dollar, every prescription pill you took from frightened people. It's going back. Within minutes, the 4 invaders had produced a shocking amount of stolen goods, piling them on Leo's kitchen table. Wedding rings, electronics, cash, medications. This is from 6 houses, Reaper said, examining the hall. These guys have been busy. Take photos, Bishop ordered. Document everything. We'll make sure it gets back to the rightful owners. He turned back to the 4 men, who were now bound with the duct tape from Leo's garage, sitting against the wall like prisoners. As for you 4, we're sorry. Marcus sobbed. Please, we'll do anything. You'll do exactly what I tell you, Bishop said. You're going to sit here, quiet and cooperative, until the storm breaks. Then we're calling the sheriff. You're going to confess to everything. Every house, every theft, every family you terrorized. And if you so much as think about retribution against this family, he leaned down until he was eye level with Vince. The grim bastards have long memories and short tempers. We will find you. We will educate you again. Do you understand? Vince nodded frantically, blood dripping from his nose. Good. Bishop straightened. Now sit there and think about your life choices. Upstairs, Tiny sat with Leo on his bed. You okay, kid? Are they really not going to kill those guys? We're not killers, Leo. Well, most of us aren't. Tiny grinned at Leo's expression. Kidding. Mostly. But seriously, we don't kill people for being stupid. We just educate them. Those guys down there. They'll be sore for a few weeks, scared for a lot longer, and they'll spend the next few years in prison thinking about what they did. That's justice. They wanted to hurt me, Leo said quietly. They did. And they would have, if we weren't here. Tiny put a huge hand on Leo's shoulder. But we were here. Because you were brave enough to open your door to scary bikers in a storm. You saved us from freezing. We saved you from them. That's how family works, Leo. Real family. Temporary family, Leo corrected with a small smile. Maybe not so temporary, Tiny said. Bishop's already decided you're under club protection. You know what that means? No. It means that as long as the grim bastards exist, you're one of us. You're protected. Anyone messes with you, they mess with all of us. That's permanent, kid. You're stuck with us now. Leo felt tears prick his eyes, but they were good tears. Really, really, welcome to the family, little brother. Dawn broke on a world transformed. The blizzard had finally passed, leaving behind a landscape of pristine white. The sun rose over snowdrifts that reached the windows of cars, over roads buried under 4 feet of powder, over a farmhouse that glowed warm and safe in the morning light. Inside, Leo was making breakfast, or trying to. 20 bikers apparently ate approximately 40 pounds of scrambled eggs. How do you guys eat this much? Leo asked, whisking another dozen eggs into a bowl. Lots of writing, Smoke said, manning the gas stove with practiced ease. Burns calories. Plus, we're big guys. That's an understatement, Leo muttered, eyeing Tiny, who was on his 4th helping. The 4 home invaders sat in the corner, still duct-taped, looking miserable and terrified. Every time one of them shifted, a biker would glance over with an expression that suggested they'd be very happy for an excuse to provide more education. Bishop had made them comfortable enough, given them water, let them use the bathroom one at a time under escort, but it made it crystal clear that any trouble would be met with immediate and overwhelming response. At 8:47 a.m., they heard an engine struggling through the snow. Bishop looked out the window. Sheriff's making his rounds. Tiny, go wave him down. The sheriff's 4-wheel drive truck pulled up to the house 5 minutes later, and Sheriff Tom Rodriguez stepped out looking exhausted and worried. He'd been up for 36 hours straight, helping with storm emergencies. His expression when he entered the house was priceless. Bishop, he said carefully, taking in the scene. What are you doing here? Got caught in the storm, Tom. Young Leo here was kind enough to give us shelter. Bishop gestured to the bound men. Found these 4 trying to rob the place around 2 a.m. Thought you might want to have a conversation with them. Rodriguez's eyes widened as he recognized Vince and his crew. These were the guys who've been hitting houses during the blackout. We've been looking for them for 2 days. He looked at Bishop with new respect. You caught them. They caught themselves, Bishop said modestly. We just detained them for you. All their stolen goods are on the table, photographed and cataloged. They've been very cooperative about confessing which houses they hit. Rodriguez walked to the table and whistled low at the pile of stolen property. This must be from a dozen homes. Maybe more. He turned to the 4 men. Gentlemen, you have the right to remain silent. As the sheriff read them their rights, Leo tugged on Bishop's sleeve. Is he going to arrest you too? Tom and I have an understanding, Bishop said. The grim bastards might not be angels, but we're not child predators or home invaders. We keep our trouble between consenting adults, and when we catch the real scum, we gift wrap them for law enforcement. Everybody wins. Sheriff Rodriguez finished Mirandizing the suspects and turned to Bishop. I'm going to need statements from all of you. Of course, we'll be here all day anyway. Roads won't be clear until this afternoon. Bishop smiled. We were planning to help young Leo shovel his driveway, being good guests and all. Rodriguez looked at Leo. Your mom know about this sleepover? Phone lines are down, Leo said. But she's going to find out soon. She's going to have a heart attack, Rodriguez predicted. The grim bastard spending the night with her 12-year-old son. We were perfect gentlemen, Bishop said solemnly. Didn't even curse. Much? Tiny added under his breath. Rodriguez shook his head, but he was smiling. Get those statements written up. I'll come back for them this afternoon. And Leo, your mom's at the hospital still, but she's been raising hell trying to get word about you. Want me to radio her that you're safe? Yes, please, Leo said gratefully. After Rodriguez left with his prisoners, the bikers set about making themselves useful. Some cleared the driveway with shovels from the garage. Others fixed the squeaky 3rd step on the stairs, the leaky faucet in the bathroom, and the loose cabinet door in the kitchen that Sarah had been meaning to repair for months. Diesel even managed to repair the generator, replacing the burned-out starter with a spare from one of the bikes. You're cannibalizing your motorcycles to fix my house? Leo asked, amazed. We can get new parts, Diesel said with a shrug. Besides, your generator's older than you are. It deserves a little love. By noon, the roads were clear enough for travel. The bikers gathered their gear, preparing to leave. Their bikes had survived the crash remarkably well. A few dents and scratches, but nothing that wouldn't run. Bishop pulled Leo aside. We're heading out, little brother. But I want you to have this. He handed Leo a business card with a phone number and an email address. You ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call that number. Someone will answer. Always. What if I'm just, like, having a bad day or something? Then you call, and we'll talk about it. That's what family does. Bishop's expression was serious. You opened your door to us when most people would have locked it. You showed us kindness when we were at our worst. The grim bastards don't forget that kind of thing. Ever. Leo threw his arms around Bishop's waist, as high as he could reach, and hugged him hard. Thank you for protecting me. Bishop's arms came around the boy, gentle despite their strength. Thank you for reminding us what we're supposed to protect. One by one, the other bikers said their goodbyes. Tiny gave Leo a gaming headset from his bike's cargo. For when you beat my high score, he said with a grin. Reaper handed him a pocket knife, then immediately backtracked at Leo's expression. For practical use only. Cutting rope, opening boxes, stuff like that. Not for stabbing. Your mom would kill me. Diesel left him a basic mechanics guide. You've got your dad's engineering brain. Might as well learn how to use it. By the time they were ready to leave, Leo's arms were full of gifts and his heart was full of gratitude. The motorcycles roared to life, a sound that would normally be aggressive but now seemed almost comforting. 20 bikes lined up in the driveway, their riders mounted and ready. Bishop revved his engine once, raised his fist in salute, and led the convoy down the drive. They turned onto the highway, a river of leather and chrome, and disappeared into the bright winter sunshine. Leo stood on the porch, waving until they were out of sight. An hour later, a car came tearing up the driveway, barely staying on the icy road. Sarah Jensen burst out before it fully stopped, running through the snow to her son. Leo, are you okay? The sheriff said, I can't believe, are you hurt? She grabbed him, checking for injuries, her face pale with worry. I'm fine, Mom. I'm completely fine. The sheriff said there was a home invasion, that the grim bastards were here. That you. She stopped, seeming to process everything at once. Did you really let 20 bikers into our house? They were freezing to death, Leo said simply. What else was I supposed to do? Sarah pulled him into a crushing hug. You were supposed to be safe. You were supposed to lock the door and hide. If I'd done that, they would have died. And then when the bad guys came, I would have been alone. Leo hugged her back, just as tight. The bikers protected me, Mom. They fixed the furnace. They caught the robbers. They even fixed the squeaky stair. Sarah laughed through her tears. They fixed the squeaky stair, and the faucet, and the generator. They were really helpful. I can't believe this, Sarah muttered, but she was smiling. My son threw a slumber party for a motorcycle gang. They're not a gang, Mom. They're a club. There's a difference. Leo pulled back to look at her seriously. They're good people. Scary, but good. Scary is right. When I heard the grim bastards had spent the night with you, she shook her head. I need to sit down. I need to process this. Maybe I need therapy. But as she looked around the house, warm, safe, with repairs completed that she'd been putting off for months, she had to admit that maybe, just maybe, her son had made the right call. Next time there's a blizzard, she said firmly, we're both staying at the hospital. Sure, Mom. Leo agreed, knowing full well that if the situation came up again, he'd make the same choice. Because that's what family did. Even temporary family. Especially family. 2 months later, spring had come to the county, melting the last of the snow and revealing a world made fresh and new. Leo's backyard was green again, the trees budding with new leaves. He was in the driveway, attempting to change the oil on his mom's car using the mechanic's guide Diesel had given him, when he heard the distinctive rumble of motorcycles. 20 bikes pulled up to the house, gleaming in the afternoon sun. The grim bastards had returned. Hey, little brother. Tiny called out, dismounting with a huge grin. We were in the neighborhood. You were not. Leo laughed, running over. We're nowhere near anything. Okay, we came specifically to see you, Bishop admitted. Got something for you. They unloaded a large box from one of the bikes. Inside was a state-of-the-art home security system. Top of the line, Diesel explained. Motion sensors, cameras, direct line to the sheriff. Nobody's sneaking up on this house again. We can't afford this, Leo protested. It's a gift, Bishop said firmly. From the club. Consider it a thank you for the soup. Sarah emerged from the house, having heard the bikes. She froze when she saw 20 bikers in her driveway again. Mrs. Jensen, Bishop said respectfully, removing his sunglasses. We wanted to personally thank you for raising such a brave, kind young man. He saved our lives that night. He said you saved his, Sarah replied carefully. We helped each other. That's what family does. Bishop gestured to the security system. We'd like to install this, if you'll permit it. Make sure you and Leo are safe. Sarah looked at her son, who was nodding eagerly. She looked at the bikers, who waited respectfully for her answer. She thought about the sheriff's report, about how these men had protected her child, caught the criminals who'd been terrorizing the county, and apparently fixed half the things in her house that had been broken. On one condition, she said finally. Name it, Bishop replied. You stay for dinner. All of you. I want to properly thank the men who kept my son safe. The bikers exchanged glances, then Bishop smiled. A real, warm smile that transformed his scarred face. We'd be honored, ma'am. They installed the security system while Sarah and Leo prepared dinner. Well, they prepared what they could. Feeding 20 bikers required ordering enough pizza to make the delivery driver's eyes go wide. Over pepperoni and casual conversation, Sarah got to know the men who'd become her son's unexpected protectors. They were rough around the edges, certainly. They had pasts they didn't discuss and futures that probably wouldn't include white picket fences. But they were loyal. They were honorable in their own way. And they clearly adored her son. As the sun set and the bikers prepared to leave, Bishop pulled Sarah aside. Your boy's special, he said quietly. He's got his father's intelligence and your heart. That's a rare combination. The grim bastards will always have his back. You have our word on that. Thank you, Sarah said, meaning it. For everything you did that night. For keeping him safe. Thank you for raising him right. Bishop handed her a card identical to the one he'd given Leo. Anything you need. Ever. You call. After they left, Leo stood on the porch again, watching the taillights disappear. Sarah joined him, putting her arm around his shoulders. You know, she said thoughtfully, I spent that whole night terrified about what might happen to you. Never occurred to me that you'd end up adopted by a biker gang. Club mom. And they're not that bad once you get to know them, says the boy who invited them in during a blizzard. Best decision I ever made, Leo said simply. Sarah had to agree. Sometimes the scariest looking people turned out to be the ones who showed up when it mattered most. Sometimes temporary family became permanent in the ways that counted. And sometimes a boy's brave choice during a blizzard created bonds that would last a lifetime. On the front lawn, visible from the road, stood a new sign that the bikers had installed. Protected by the grim bastards MC. Trespassers will be educated. Sarah had laughed when she saw it, but she didn't ask them to take it down. Because in a world that could be cold and dangerous, it was good to have a family watching your back. Even if that family rode motorcycles and looked like they could bench press a car. Especially then.